get going here. First off, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for Public Open House number 2 for the Highway 38 improvements in Bigfork, Minnesota. So tonight we have a presentation on the selected concept, and then we'll have time for questions and answers. So as a reminder, for those that are joining us virtually through Zoom, when you joined, you're muted and your video is disabled. The chat function is also disabled. You can use the Q&A function. It's the little, looks like 2 little thought bubbles with the Q and the A. You can submit your questions there at any time, and we'll answer them during the Q&A portion. If you have any technical difficulties accessing Zoom, the phone number to contact me is 612-394-6037, or email me at dpfeiffer@wsbeng.com. Tonight, so there's a note, the meeting ID is not working.
We can see those. We can see the screen on our side, Dan.
Yep.
Maybe I'll pick it up from here. So today's panelists, so we have Randy Costley standing just off camera here. He's the MnDOT project manager. I'm Dan Madison. I'm the consultant project manager with Samba Tech. Our preliminary designer, Nick Henches, is on the call as well. Ben Loden, our final designer, is also on the call. And this session is moderated by Dan Pfeiffer, who just previously spoke, Farve Maksus, and Pippi Mayfield from MnDOT. So today's agenda, first of all, welcome. Thanks for everybody showing up today. We have more people in the room today than we have online attending this open house. This is the first in-person open house that I've done in 2 years, which is hard to believe that it's been that long. So this is kind of fun to see everybody coming together here. So today we're going to go over the project basics and history. Randy will kind of go over the history. And if any of you were here at the previous open house in April, some of this will be rehashed. We're presenting some similar information just in case somebody did not see that first presentation about a couple months ago. And Randy will hand it off to me. I'll go over the project needs and overview the design of the project. And then we'll go over the previous open house really at a high level. And then we'll talk the selected alternative. So for those of you that are here in person, that layout on the back table, that's the selected alternative. And after this presentation, you'll have a chance to talk with us one-on-one and go over any thoughts or concerns you may have on this final alternative. Then I'll briefly touch on some project construction impacts. We'll go over the schedule and next steps for the project. And then we'll talk, Dan Pfeiffer will go over, for those that are virtual, the websites for leaving feedback. That's also available for anybody in this room. The website will be up for a couple weeks yet after today. And you'll have a link that you can follow on the project website. And then we'll do Q&A. So like questions and answers will be both virtual, which Dan Pfeiffer will help with, and then in person here. So if anybody has questions at the end of the presentation, let us know, ask your question. We'll repeat it here to the virtual audience and address the question on camera. So we can move ahead. So I'll hand it over to Randy.
Hey everyone, as Dan said, I'm Randy Costley. I'm the MnDOT project manager for the project, and it's nice to be back out in person instead of being online on a computer. For anybody that doesn't know, this project is going to start at the Ryella Mill Road, and it'll go to just short of County Road 14. So it'll go through the downtown core, across the bridge, and then a little ways north of the bridge. As far as project basics go, the project is programmed right now to be let in April of 2023. With that letting, we would anticipate that the construction is going to happen over the summer and the fall of 2023. And the type of work for this project, it's classified as pavement resurfacing and rehabilitation with bicycle and pedestrian improvements that are triggered by working on the pavement. The funding for the project is state funds, and the construction budget is $2.5 million. The city will have a cost share in the project, and it'll include things like a percentage of the parking bays, repairs to the lighting system, fire hydrant relocations, water valve adjustments, sewer manhole adjustments, stuff like that that we'll encounter as we're doing the construction. And that's not an exhaustive list. We're not sure exactly everything that the city has that will be impacted on that, but that's kind of an overview. The procurement method we're going to use is going to be design, bid, build. So we will do a design, we'll advertise it, we'll receive bids, and go that way. So I think a lot of people probably remember the last time that we were here to work on Highway 38. We did a reconstruction in 1999, and that was a full reconstruct through the area, grading, surfacing, lighting, the edge of the wilderness kiosk and interpretive area down there, the bridge over the Bigfork River, and at the same time, the city did the city water and sewer system. So after that project, there were a couple of sidewalk and curb and gutter and some drainage issues. So we came back in 2014 and we corrected a lot of the problems that we had with storm sewer, curb and gutter and sidewalks. And you know, as you know, you guys are the people using the highway, driving on it all the time. You know that the highway is experiencing a significant amount of cracking, and we figure that it's likely due to the heavy duty traffic that it gets. Logging trucks and other type of stuff is wearing out the pavement. So currently we have a ride quality of a 1.7, which puts it in the poor category for ride. And due to that poor ride quality, this segment of Highway 38 came up in our program, and it was programmed for this rehabilitation work in 2023. MnDOT started scoping in 2018. And as we got into that scoping process, knowing the impacts that we had on the pavement would trigger that we have to relook at the ADA accessibility of the curb ramps. It was determined that all of the bituminous pavement, all of the flush concrete bump outs, and all of the sidewalk and curb and gutter was just going to be removed. We're not going to get into the grade below that. We're just going to remove the surfacing, and then we'll put all new surfacing back down, or we're going to limit the amount that we get into the base underneath. The current, can you go back one for me there? The current cross section through the city is very, very wide. And so one of MnDOT's missions is, that we need to serve all modes of travel. It's, we can't just concentrate on vehicles. So one of our goals was to work with the city and try to come up with some ways that we could reallocate some of that extra width out there to accommodate some other modes of travel. Okay, next slide. As we were doing the scoping, MnDOT we conducted some early public engagement. We came out to a couple of city council meetings, worked with the city and city leaders, and tried to discuss different ways that what we consider to be excess pavement width could be used to serve other modes and possibly to calm traffic that comes through the city. On April 28th, we hosted a public open house where we presented several design concepts. We solicited input from the community, and we gathered that through different means. We had an online survey, we had interactive issues map, we had paper surveys, and we actually did a small scale demonstration of back-in angle parking that hopefully people got a chance to try that out. All the feedback that we received, that was all compiled and analyzed, and it led to the development of what we're going to present today. And that's, I'm calling it the preferred design concept, but Dan, you called it the selected preferred. And we did develop that after we received the input. We worked with the city leaders to come to this concept. And now, that we're at this point, we're really looking forward to presenting this preferred design concept and moving into final design and ultimately construction in 2023. So that's it for what I have on the history.
All right, so to swing back to some of the needs Randy talked about for the highway. So this is a pavement rehab project, and the deteriorating pavements is resulting in a rough ride through town. And so, we talked about this last time, but anytime MnDOT does a pavement job, it's state law that they swing through and they upgrade sidewalks to be ADA compliant. So before the open house today, we went and walked through the entire town, and it's clear the sidewalks in poor condition, just like the pavement is. And so those are the reasons why when you're going out and you're rehabbing pavement for the driving surface, you take a look at the sidewalk. And so we're talking the tilt of the sidewalk, the running slope of the sidewalk, the curb ramps, really anything that a pedestrian uses needs to be accessible for those that are walking in a wheelchair, using canes, blind, whatever disability that might be out there. So when we come through with this next project, we're looking at those other users that may be using the highway in addition to the vehicles. So what is in this project scope? So we'll be looking at repairing the lighting system through town. We'll evaluate the highway cross section, which we did with the presentation last time through. We're looking at new sidewalks and curb ramps all the way through town. We'll replace that pavement surface, not get into the road grade, and then evaluate the commercial driveway width through town. So the previous open house was in April. What happened at that open house? We presented 4 concepts to the public, and we took comments both in person and online. And the comments received were pretty consistent through town. We got, with the 4 concepts, obviously the comments differed per concept, but mostly what we heard was we like it the way it is in town. And so we had presented this back-end angled parking, and that was pretty unpopular, I'd say. I think we only had 1 vote in favor, and I don't know if that was one of the MnDOTers in the room. But everybody else did not like back-end angled parking, so that's out of the project. So we took that feedback, we worked with the city, and MnDOT directed us to move forward with this preferred alternative that's here. So let's walk through what's in this preferred alternative. So first we'll look at the section north of the river. This is the section that'll mostly look the same as it is today. Rehab pavement surface, we'll extend some curb and gutter and sidewalk a little bit further north. But essentially what's out there today is what will go back. And so this final concept that we're presenting today is somewhat of a hybrid of what was presented last time and modified based on feedback received from both the public and working with the city staff in determination of the feedback received and the costs that kind of fall between the state and the city on the selected option. So what you're seeing here on the top, and this will be hard to see, but for those in the room, but we'll walk through it over on the layout after the presentation, is sidewalk somewhat similar to what you're seeing today. It's slightly wider than what's out there today. Angled parking, so this is pull-in angled parking, same that's out there today, same width that's out there today. And then we're proposing 5.5-foot bike lanes, and I'll get to the reason for those bike lanes in a bit. And then 12-foot driving lanes. So this is the cross section that you'll see through the section through downtown Bigfork that's on the screen. That's the area south of the river. And so it's really the downtown core is getting this cross section here. So actually, Dan, if we could back up, I did want to address the bike lanes here. So we did present bike lanes at the last open house, and it received some positive feedback, but also some negative feedback. So we were ready to potentially move forward without doing something with that extra space. But there's MnDOT policy that does not allow MnDOT or the state to pay for unwarranted pavement in a cross section, which would be anything beyond the 12 feet of driving lane. And so that space needs to go somewhere. If it doesn't go to a dedicated user, like a biker, or sidewalk, like a walker, and it remains drivable surface by state policy, that cost would fall to the city. So that's policy that is implemented across the state. So it's a standard use across the state. So by dedicating the space to bikers, striping it out as a bike lane, it preserves the extra width that's out there today, but it's striped differently than what's out there today. And it's usable by, if anybody is biking through town, they will have dedicated space to use that off the sidewalk. Tends to be more experienced bikers using those bike lanes. The major benefit to the city is now the state is picking up the cost of the bike lanes. So that's a hefty price tag, and it's something that can translate to the state by dedicating it as bike lane space. So there may be questions on that. I'd be happy to answer any questions on how funding is split after the presentation. So the expected construction impacts on this project will be constructed under traffic by shifting traffic around. And when I say traffic, I mean also pedestrians. So some sidewalks will be closed at certain times, lanes will be closed, parking will be closed at all time or at certain times, and we'll be shifting traffic around to maintain use through town. We expect this will be a one summer construction. We have to get through design and confirm that as we're kind of going through some of the design questions. Access to businesses will be maintained at all times. It may not be convenient in some times, but it will be maintained at all times. Like I said, lanes will be shifted and some parking will be removed during construction and placed back after. Alternative routes for pedestrians will be used and signed. So if we do have a sidewalk closed, they'll be directed across the streets, across the block, and they'll come back across to get around. And so as we iterate design and we get into what's called final designs, that's when we get into the details. More information will be available online and available to the public at that time. So what is the schedule to this project? So we kicked off design of this project in March. We developed and presented preliminary concepts in April. We had that first open house right at the end of April. We're presenting this, we developed the final design concepts kind of through May and into June. Met with the city several times and kept modifying based on concerns the city brought up, both for maintenance and business access and other items. And as that design develops and why it's a preferred alternative as we go into a final layout, there are still things we may tweak here and there as we're getting to that final selected preferred layout. So, and part of that is the feedback we may receive tonight. There may be some things that we still need to move around or tweak based on feedback today. So today, end of June, open house number 2. Beyond this, our goal will be to finalize this layout over the rest of the summer. And we'll be working with the states, several offices within the state as we develop that final layout, which is essentially what's on that table over there. We'll ask for municipal consent from the city based on that final layout this upcoming winter, and that's kind of an administrative thing where we'll again present this concept to the city formally, and they'll formally hopefully give us consent to move forward with the project. And then, so once we have municipal consent, we're developing our final plan set. So that's the big plan set that contractors will use to bid the project and construct it. Bid opening is currently April of 2023, and construction would be summer all the way into late fall to finalize construction on this project. So I'll hand it back over to Dan, and he'll go over how to leave comments on the website. Before I mute myself here, I will mention there are comment forms on the back table. Please sign in if you haven't. Leave comments on the comment forms. If you have any, we also have the layout with Post-its on it. So if you have any location-based comments, if it's more convenient, feel free to write a Post-it and stick it on the layout, and help us, get that feedback that we're seeking on this final preferred layout. So Dan, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Dan. So there is a comment map online that you can add your comments to. We'll also have a comment form online. For tonight, since we're kind of both in a mixed virtual and in person, if you are in the room, please raise your hand and Dan will call on you. You can ask Dan the question, and Dan Matson in the room in Bigfork will relay the question so that everyone on the call can also hear it. If you're on the call and you'd like to speak your question, use the raise the hand function. You'll have a little hand, you click on it, you can raise it, and then I'll select a button that allows you to unmute yourself. I'll call on you, and then you're able to unmute yourself and ask your question. If you're called in by phone, you can use *6 to indicate you want to raise your hand. You can also put the question in the Q&A function, and I'll read it for staff to respond to. So with that, I will open it up to questions. And I don't have any in the Q&A. I don't see anyone yet in no one has their hand raised in the virtual, so.
So the question here in the room is, if the bike path were to be put on the sidewalk, would the town still be responsible for the cost of that, of the bike path? So that was an option presented last time around, was our shared use path concept, which when you put a bike path off the road, or really when you put it anywhere, there's design standards you have to meet. So when you put it off the road, it's called a shared use path, because bikers and pedestrians are using it at the same time. And so there are certain minimum widths that have to be utilized to design that. So that was our shared use path concept last time through. So if we were to go with that concept, that would be a state cost. So that would be providing an option for a biker or walker within the state right of way, dedicated instead of on the roadway. It would be on the sidewalk. But what that would do is it would narrow up that space in the driving surface. So you'd lose that 11 feet of on-road space.
Aren't you losing it anyhow with the bike path being designated on the car?
You're not, so the curbs are not moving it that much closer to the driving lane. So the question was, if you're putting the bike lanes on the roadway anyway, aren't you losing the lane space for drivers anyway? It's still drivable space. It's not space you want to be driving down as you're driving through town, but it's space you can cross and park and utilize as you're coming through town. If we were to take that space and put it on the sidewalk, everything would be that much closer into the driving lanes. So there's that much less room for trucks as they come through town. So it is an engineering option, or it's a design option, but based on feedback that we heard last time, is people wanted to preserve that drivable space through town.
There'd be a problem with the snow removal that you narrow it up.
Yeah, if you physically narrow it, it will make snow removal more difficult.
Yeah, so that,
Bad enough as it is. You can barely, between the snow and the parked vehicles, you barely get through.
Right. And that distance will remain the same under this concept.
so for those online, there's a comment that if you narrowed up the highway cross section, it would make plowing more difficult. And Randy noted that, yeah, that's true. We have been working with the city on plowing operations with this concept. And that's some of the iterations we've been making as we've been working with the city and the maintenance staff by actually removing some of the elements that were originally in this concept to facilitate plowing.
So Dan, in the online Q&A, there is a question, how long should the sidewalk last? The last one lasted probably 50 years. So lifespan of the sidewalk.
Three, so yeah, there will be 3 locations at the 3 intersections. On the north side of the intersection, there will be raised concrete bump outs.
So there was a question about the bump outs on the layout. And yeah,
So there are a couple of design. Concrete bump outs are what we call a mountable curb, so that it won't be an abrupt vertical face. It would be something that would be more friendly to snow removal. And also, you know, having that physical bump out there instead of the flat one, the windrow of snow will have to be kept a little bit further away from the intersections than it has been in years past. But, you know, working with the city, Public Works, and working with our maintenance department, everybody feels like the snow removal operation can pretty much operate the same after the project as it has been up to date. So.
were you able to hear that online?
Yep.
Okay. So sorry, Dan, we cut you off on a question.
So how long should the sidewalk last?
So the question was, how long should the sidewalks last?
Yes.
You know, I guess I can't give a number on that. Anything deteriorates. So once we come through with this pavement project, the next one more than likely would be a mill and overlay, and that, you know, would be sometime 10 to 15 years from now. So at that time, the states would come through and again assess the sidewalks for condition. And as part of that project, if anything is no longer ADA compliant, meaning if there's heaving or broken panels, that would be replaced. But as far as how long it will last, the sidewalk tends to hold up pretty well. You do end up with broken panels over time, and those would be replaced on a case-by-case basis. So I couldn't give a timeline on that. I'm sorry for not giving an exact number.
And then another question, how is ride quality measured? The town section seems no worse than other parts of 38.
So I'm just turning on here because I had it too low, Dan. So I think the question was why this section of 38 and not a longer section of 38?
Yeah, and how is specifically how is ride quality measured?
Okay. So the ride quality is measured. So I assume it was done on this project, but the state has 2 trucks that drive around the states, and they do it, I think, every year with equipment on it that measures crack distance and crack depth and other information about the highway. And that gets processed in a program, and what's output is a measurement of how poor the pavement is compared to other pavement in the state. So the more cracks that exist out there, the lower the ride quality, and the worse the cracks are, the lower the ride quality. So if they're deeper, or if there's more potholes. So all of that kind of goes into the database, and what's output is a condition rating on the pavement. I guess I can't speak to why this specific section, if other sections on either end are as just poor condition. I don't know if Randy, if you know offhand, sometimes it's based on the last project in this section was here, and that okay.
Yeah.
So this pavement section that we're working on this highway is all of the same age. So what's north and south would be of a different age or type and built in a different project. And sometimes that's how those decisions are made.
preferred design that you're talking about here, does it have any impact on any commercial interests in town? It's like, I heard something about there's encroachment of a awning or this kind of thing. Has that been precluded, or is that still a possible impact?
Yeah, so the question is, does this project have any impact on commercial interests in town? And specifically, he had mentioned an awning through town that's on MnDOT right of way, and is that being impacted on this project? Do you want me to take that one, or?
I don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are a couple of commercial properties that do have encroachments on MnDOT right away. And we have been working with the owners and also with the city to try and come up with a solution to those encroachments that everybody can live with. And I think that we're going, without going into the specific details of what the solutions are, I think we're going down a path where we have alternates that are acceptable to the businesses and to MnDOT. So.
And then related to that, I had previously submitted a comment on the bike lanes. And it's, if you're talking about having the bike lanes and it's going to create encroachment and have an impact on our commercial owners and that, which is, we need all the commercial owners to get this down, you know, rather not do that if the bike lane is the issue. I really appreciate your explanation on why the bike lane is still in the plan, and I totally get it. My comments repeat what I had said in my written comment was, we have Highway 38, which is arguably to the serious biker. And by the way, bikers, I think, ought to be a part of the interest of this community to generate recreational opportunities that would draw, particularly in the good times of the year. You know, people come up here and using, you know, the wilderness edge for good things like bicycling. And I happen to know a few serious bicycle riders. But right now, Highway 38 is going to be one of the most risky bike riding highways owned by the state across the whole state. And yet we're going to put bike lanes in. And I'm not opposed to bike lanes per se, but it seems like, to reflect on an old political thing, like a bridge too far to create a bike lane and then potentially have an impact on a commercial owner who's got an awning that overhangs, when in fact, you know, why do we need a bike lane when there's no opportunity for serious bikers on 38? Most of them who do it seriously come up 7, which is much more conducive to serious bike riding, you know. And so I guess I wonder, is there anything we can do? This bike lane is an imperative that we can't resist. One, I hope it doesn't impact on commercial owners that have to remove an awning or a porch or something like that for the sake of a bike lane. I think that would be wrong. That's not the case, you're saying.
No, I don't, how would we summarize that question?
So I guess overall the question was, are the bike lanes, if this option, does it create additional burden on the commercial interests through town? And so with the bike lane option, it's not changing what's happening on the outside of the cross section. And that's true with any of the concepts that were presented. What it's impacting is what's happening towards the driving lanes.
Okay, I accept that. And then just a final comment, maybe a question you can't answer, but how can we weigh in to say we would like 38 to be more bicycle friendly than it is right now, which is total bicycling ugly?
Mm-hmm.
And is there anything we as a community can do, or that you can do, or that somehow in the course of this, we have a footnote that says we want a bike lane, but our footnote is we also would encourage the state to consider a more conducive bike access to our community by either broadening 38 or using the gut and liver access way or something else to overcome the serious problems with Highway 38. And I think I'm repeating what you probably know, but it's narrow, the shoulder is narrow. And then what did the state do? We put in these rumble strips. And a bicyclist is just drives crazy, you know, they're going crazy trying to stay out of the way of traffic. And then they got to ride on these rumble strips, which, you know, disrupt their, okay, my point has been made.
Right.
Appreciate any comments you have on that.
Yeah, so the question related to how can the community express the concern to improve the rest of the Highway 38 corridor for bicycling. so that it can match up with bicycling opportunities in the city. And I think that, you know, the feedback that is provided to us, we're going to keep that and we can move that on to MnDOT management so that that's recorded, that that's a concern in the corridor. And there's also a Highway 38 leadership group that I think that concern should definitely be brought up to the leadership group so that that can be a part of their planning or thinking about what
By the
that
way, I've
corridor should
done
be.
that, but I'm just looking to build a consensus of people who all are on top of this issue to try to do something good for our community, somewhat isolated, and we need every help we can get to make it, you know, a recreational center.
Right. And I can say that part of MnDOT's process of scoping is that we look at every segment that a project is programmed on. We look at it for bicycling opportunities and pedestrian opportunities. And sometimes there's not a way that we can accommodate, but most of the time, if we can, we do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dan, was there anything else online?
I don't have any more online.
Any questions for the presentation? Okay. Well, that might wrap it up. Just a reminder, please give us feedback online on the website link that's provided. Everybody here in the room will have an opportunity to talk to us about the layout on the table. We'll be here as long as you want. Hopefully not too late. We'll be here as long as you want and answer any questions that we have. So, all right, thank you, everybody.